Hi, I'm going to talk a bit about a subject that's been doing my head in the last few weeks, and it's to do with Amazon's return policy for ebooks. Now, this is a thing that's been an issue ever since I started publishing through Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. So I've been a full-time author and publisher for 12 years now, and I've seen this issue come up every few months ever since 2011. You can see, for example, here is a Twitter. Loads of people getting very upset about it, and this is at least the fifth major petition people put together to try and ask Amazon to change their return policy. So it is an issue, and I don't want to in any way belittle the fact that some authors have been caught out at the moment and having real problems because people are basically reading books with no intention of ever paying for them because they are abusing the return policy. So that's a real thing for some authors. But the reason it's doing my head in is because so much of what's being said is tinged by disinformation, and that's obscuring what I think are the important messages and information that people should be aware of, which we will come to in a minute. But just to say first of all, the things I think are important is Amazon makes it easy and has always made it easy for people who buy Kindle ebooks to return them, no questions asked, full refund within a short time period. It's 14 days in Europe and it's 7 days in the rest of the world. Obviously that is open to abuse and has always been open to abuse, but has been earlier in the year, in the spring, I think, on Book Talk and on various Facebook groups, there have been people who've been read and review challenge and various things and describing it as some kind of life hack. So the message really is to people who think that it's okay to read a book, a Kindle ebook, that they have no intention of ever paying for, because they will return it within the 7 or 14 day window. But people who do that and think it's justified because they're sticking it to the man. They hate Amazon, they hate Jeff Bezos, they hate large companies, or Amazon is a large company, so they won't mind. But the fact of the matter is that if you return a book within that window, then the author will just not get paid. They won't earn a penny. So, I know authors work very, very hard, and most of us, the amount of work that we put into our books is effectively paid at far less than the minimum wage, wherever you happen to live. So probably you're taking money away from an author who earns a lot less money at what they do than you do. So in publishing, we call this a total dick move. So that, I think, is an important message, because some people thought it's all right to do this because it's Amazon, and don't realise, in fact, that Amazon doesn't really care, but the authors care, because you are reading the books, and because you're returning them within this period, they don't earn a penny. The other message, and I've seen scores of people really worried about this, is people who've picked up this idea that Amazon is doing bad things to authors and penalising them for returns, and are worried that they are penalising authors when they read and then return books in Kindle Unlimited. Now, that is not the case. So Kindle Unlimited, if you don't know, is the Amazon subscription service. So you pay whatever it is these days, $9 a month or something, and you can basically read and return as many books as you like that are within the Kindle Unlimited program. So as authors and publishers, we love it when you read books and return them in Kindle Unlimited, because the more you return, the more you can read, and the more you read in Kindle Unlimited, the more we get paid. And the pay rates are actually pretty generous. So that's another question that comes up. So let's just tackle that one. I tend to publish books that are around about 100 to 110,000 words, and if I were to sell that at $3.99 in the US, I earn slightly more on a sale than in a Kindle Unlimited read. If I were to sell a book at $2.99, then I will earn significantly more in Kindle Unlimited. Any sale price beyond $3.99, then I'm earning less in Kindle Unlimited. So, you know, it probably, depending on your pricing, it's probably authors earn a bit less with Kindle Unlimited than with a sale. But it is not like Spotify, where you hear these horror stories where people earn ridiculously small amounts. We can, you know, we can earn a living on Kindle Unlimited, definitely. So, those are my messages. If you're on Kindle Unlimited, as a reader, please read and return as much as you like. It doesn't harm the author. And if you think it's fun to read a book with no intention of ever paying for it, well, just bear in mind that you are hurting the author. Amazon doesn't really care. So with those two things out the way, let's look at some of these here. One of the things that I say is disinformation because it isn't true for me or for any other author I've talked to. And I'm going to go through the numbers in a minute and prove why this isn't true for me. Hundreds of authors are saying things like this. The author is charged back more than they were paid for the sale. Authors charge more than the price of the book, and it goes on and on and on. And this isn't true. No, it's not true for me or for any other author I've talked to. I cannot 100% say it isn't true for any of these authors, but it would just seem very peculiar if Amazon's working differently for different authors. So that's why I've gone through the numbers. So, I mean, there's hundreds of authors who are really very concerned about this, about having to pay a fee to be penalised every time that return is made, that they can go through their numbers and neither prove that they are indeed correct, or, as I think is probably more likely, prove that this in fact isn't correct and this is disinformation. And I say disinformation because it certainly isn't true for all authors. And as I say, I suspect it isn't true for any author. So we'll go through that in a minute, but just that another little thing that confuses people. Some people are going 7 days, some people are 14, some people think there's been a change of 7 to 14 days in the USA. In fact, when I started in 2011, it was 7 days return policy throughout everywhere in the world. So what that means is this is for sales of books, not borrows from Kindle Unlimited. If you buy a book, Amazon makes it very easy for you to return it. No questions asked. You don't have to contact customer services within 7 days. That was changed to 14 days in Europe, and that includes the United Kingdom, due to this, which is a directive from the European Union. So for those who aren't in the European Union or weren't until recently, a directive means that the European Union Commission says that all the member nations in the European Union must enact legislation or other vehicles that deliver all these things in this directive. So this is 2011. I can't remember when Amazon upped it to 14 days in Europe, but I think it'd be about 2012 or 13. This is current guidance from the UK government, and so the current act that's relevant to us is the Consumer Rights Act of 2015. So basically what that means is for Amazon and every other seller of ebooks, a 14-day, no questions asked, full refund without questions such as what percentage did you read through the book, is a policy that isn't their choice, it's the law. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't put pressure and write petitions for Amazon to change their ebook return policy in other parts of the world, but it seems to me that Amazon is not the right person to complain to, such as the Society of Authors did here in the UK, because it's actually legislation that says they must give that 14-day return policy. I also looked at the terms and conditions that we as authors and publishers sign up to use Amazon as our retailer. And the relevant bit, I've lost it now. There. If we pay you a royalty on a sale and later issue a refund, return or credit for that sale, we may offset the amount of the royalty previously paid for that sale against future royalties. And they can also, although I've never heard this happen, they can actually charge you for it. So I'll point out this bit here. If we pay you a royalty, Amazon pays royalties 2 calendar months after a sale is made. So we're currently in August 2022. Amazon will calculate a final royalty statement for August sales at the end of October, and then pay at the end of October. So this 7-day and 14-day window has long since passed before anybody is paid. So, and that's an important point, because some people are saying things like, well, they take money back for you when you owe money to Amazon. That simply isn't the case, because for the 7 or 14-day window, which Amazon makes it very easy to return books, they will process that return and issue the refund to the customer months before the publisher is paid, months before your royalty statement is put together. So that's part of the disinformation going around, that that Amazon pays the author, and then the author has to pay back money to Amazon. That is not true. For the 7 or 14-day window, all of that has happened long before Amazon pays the author. Now, one of the things that is, as I said, doing my head in is, if you were to look at some of these larger threads and the various websites reporting on it, and look at the comments, then what you see is, initially people make comments about perhaps Amazon's changed their return policy, and people make comments about it's not a good thing for readers to deliberately not pay for books that they read because it hurts the author. But I think what's different this time around is, because there's this disinformation going around that people are charged an extra penalty fee, effectively, when books are returned, that it's got a particularly ugly dimension to it. And if you follow these threads or these comments, very quickly it becomes people piling in to say, it's all Amazon's fault. Amazon's at fault here. I hate Amazon. Amazon are evil. I hate Amazon. Which, you know, perhaps is a fair point of view, but it's completely obscuring what I think is the important message, which is that this return policy, perhaps we should sign petitions to change it outside of Europe. But also the message I started with at the beginning, which is that if readers read a book and then return it without ever intending to pay for it, then that does hurt the author, and that maybe they really shouldn't do it. So I've said more than once, in fact, that authors are not charged extra for returns, and I'll go through the numbers in just a moment, but just one little extra wrinkle in here. As I've said, if you return a book within the 7 or 14-day window, the author won't get paid. They don't earn a penny. They also don't get charged anything. They just never get paid for that sale. It's as if it never happened. However, if a book is returned after the royalties are finalised, which is 2 calendar months later, so for August books, if you returned a book that you bought in August, but you returned it at the end of October or later, then you're returning it after the royalties have been finalised and after the author's been paid. So in that circumstance, this bit we looked at earlier comes into play, and Amazon will basically charge you for future sales. So they take it off future sales. So you're still not charged any extra delivery fee or anything like that, but it is a way in which you could possibly conceivably owe Amazon money, but you can't owe Amazon money until at least 2 months after a book has been returned. So sorry, you can't owe Amazon unless a book's returned at least 2 months after it was sold. So clearly long before the 7 or 14 day window. So just to restate that, if you return a book in a 7 or 14 day window, it is not possible under any circumstances for the author to owe Amazon money. It just doesn't happen. Or at least doesn't happen for me or for any author I've talked to. So if you think it does, I'm going to go through the numbers and show you how to prove to yourself one way or the other. Okay, so we're going to have a look at how Amazon calculates your royalties on the 70% royalty rate and how that affects us with our delivery fees. So the point about all this is, if you're worried about Amazon overcharging you for returns, then you can go through your own numbers and satisfy yourself that you understand how your royalty is calculated, how it includes the delivery fee, and to go through your royalty statement and prove to yourself that either there is no separate overcharging delivery fee or whatever other version of the overcharging idea that's going around at the moment, or indeed prove that there is one. But I really doubt that you will do that, because I've not found an author yet who believes that in fact we are overcharged. So just to restate that, if a customer asks for a refund and gets a book refunded, as the publisher, we just don't earn any royalty on that book. We earn nothing, but we don't have to pay a fee, despite obviously some claims going around at the moment. But I can prove from my own numbers that I do not pay a separate fee, and I've talked to other authors and they also think this isn't the case. But I don't see every author's numbers. You go through your numbers if you believe you're being overcharged, and then prove to yourself one way or the other. So I'm going to have a look at a particular example. This is a box set. It has a lot of images. The delivery fee is very large. And in here, this is the bookshelf. You will have this. That we see that 70% royalty rate. It tells us list price. This is the only thing we can see. Tax and delivery fee, and tells us what the royalty rate is. So it's actually part of our terms and conditions. We have this terms and conditions digital book pricing page. This is where Amazon explains how it calculates the 70% royalty rate. So it's worth reading it out. It's calculated by the list price minus VAT or other sales tax minus the delivery cost. Work out that value, which effectively is the net income per sale, and then multiply by 70%, because we get 70% of the net income per sale. So we can go through that as an example, and that's why on the bookshelf it's split this way. It's the list price minus the tax minus delivery charge. Work out what that is, and then multiply by 70% to get that number. So I've actually just worked this out. Here's a little Excel spreadsheet to do it for me. So in this particular case, we have Amazon Canada. It's priced at $6.99. The tax in Canada is 0, and the delivery charge is 43 cents. As I said, it's a very, very large book. More typically, I generally publish books about 100,000 words with a few images inside, and in the US that's about 10 cents, 9 or 10 cents. Incidentally, when you work out the numbers, that delivery charge means that in effect I'm not really getting a 70% royalty rate. It's more like a 68% royalty rate, but I still think it's a very, very good rate. So $6.99 minus 0 minus 43 cents comes to $6 $4.56. So that, as I say, is effectively, that is the net income per book, of which I get a 70% share, which is $4.59. So if we look here, that's where that number comes from, is $4.59. There is not a separate charge for the delivery fee. It's calculated here. Effectively, it's saying this is our cost of sale. So I mean, we can do this for any of these, and I urge you to do this. I mean, I think if you're concerned about how these numbers are calculated, then run through. You've got all these things. You can prove how all those numbers are generated. So if you look at Japan, there we go, 687 yen is the list price. It's 3 yen delivery cost. The tax, well, it does it for you, which makes it a bit awkward when I'm trying to figure out the taxes. It's 63 yen. So 687 minus 63 minus 3 is 621. Multiplied by 70% is 434.7, which if you round up is 435. So again, I can go through every single one of these, put it into that formula, which is exactly what Amazon says it does, and come to the correct royalty rate. Now, to prove to yourself one way or the other about whether there's a restocking fee, whether you have to refund the customer in full the list price, or you're not refunded the delivery charge. These are all things I've been hearing and are disturbing people on Twitter and the like. So I've got this. This is my royalty statement. So the same place where people are showing some accrued royalty reports that have negative numbers that don't in themselves prove that the authors owe Amazon anything. In the same place, there's on the left-hand side, there's statements, payments, and royalties. So this is the royalty statement. So you don't get this into 2 calendar months after the month in which the sales are made. So this is for sales in May, and I received this or is available at the end of July. So your royalties are not finalised until 2 calendar months after the month in which sales are made, and then shortly before you get paid. So if you want to know what you've actually been paid and how Amazon has handled your royalties, don't run it off the day-by-day report, run it off your actual royalty statement, which you get 2 months later. It should look like this. It's a spreadsheet. I think recently you've been able to view it inside the Amazon reports itself. So now that's the book we were looking at earlier, but back in May it was priced a bit more. So it was $8.99, 0 tax, and it was the same size. It was 43 cents delivery cost. So it would at the time have been $5.99 royalty per sale. So that, the thing we're seeing sometimes on Twitter with the negative numbers, that's the accrued royalty report. So that's showing us how much Amazon currently thinks for the filter you've set in a report that your royalty is going up or down. So in our case, because I know that during May the tax remained the same, the book didn't change, so the delivery cost was the same, and I kept the same price, then it means that for all the books sold during May, it's simply a matter of every time I made a sale, my accrued royalty for that title went up by $5.99, and every time there's a return, it went down by $5.99. So it's simply a matter of 9 sales minus 2 refunds equals 7 net sales, and I've done that here, haven't I? So 7 times my royalty per sale of $5.99 equals $41.93, which is exactly what that number is. So I can reconcile it all. I know that is, I know that we've just proved how we can get the royalty. I've multiplied that by my net units sold to reach my royalty. It really is as simple as that. So, you know, I've gone through different months over different years, different regions, and I've proved all these numbers all over the place. I can reconcile that exactly to the penny. It simply is a matter of every time you make a sale, your accrued royalty goes up by $5.99. Every time you get a refund, it goes down $5.99. Now, it isn't always as simple as that, because if any of these values change, then the royalty will change. So if you change the price during the month, then it becomes very difficult to reconcile, because some of those sales are at one royalty and some sales are at another royalty. And again with the refunds, I know, because the price has been consistent for some time, that it's simply every time I have a value in there, it's going up $5.99 and that's down $5.99. But what if that refund could have been from 6 months ago? I don't know that. And 6 months ago it was a different price. Then it becomes difficult to reconcile. The principle is the same. That it's every time you make a sale, your accrued royalty goes up by the value of your royalty, and every time you get a refund, it goes down by whatever the royalty was when that particular book was sold. So it doesn't mean that there's now suddenly a hidden delivery fee, but it does mean that if any of those values have changed, then that becomes difficult to reconcile. And you can find that the price changes frequently, because if you base the price on Amazon.com, then it can change frequently. Amazon will change it for you, which means that on a day-by-day basis the royalty will be slightly different. So that makes it difficult to complicate. It doesn't change the principle, it just makes it complicated. Now, the last thing to do to prove that there isn't, you're not being stung by hidden fees for returns, is to add up all the royalties for a given month for a given marketplace. So here are all the Canada ones for May, and that comes up to $112.38. So I then look at my payment report, and I have done this, and I've checked, and I was paid $112.38. So there is nowhere to hide that I can see for this idea of we have to refund the customer, or there's an extra delivery fee that we're not refunded. All the numbers match exactly all the way through to the final amount that I get paid, and the only place the delivery cost comes in is here. And every time there's been a refund, I've gone and checked through all these numbers. There is no extra line anywhere that says, and here's your secret delivery cost that we're not refunding. That is, you know, I can explain every cent, and that's the only place the delivery cost comes in, even when there are returns. So, I mean, where I'm sort of coming from this is, I've done this work. It doesn't really take very long just to go through several months, indeed years, of royalty returns, book returns across various regional stores, and in all cases I've checked, and I am not being charged extra for my refunds. It simply is, every time that you make a sale, your accrued balance, your accrued royalty for that store goes up by the royalty that matches Amazon's description of how it does its royalty. And if that book was returned, then you would get that zeroed out. But it's only ever zeroed out. It's never overcharged. You are not charged an extra delivery fee. There is nowhere to hide in the numbers. It just doesn't happen for me, and indeed for other people I've talked to. But you know, one of the things that happens with Amazon, sometimes it does things differently for different people in different regions. So although I've talked with American authors and they don't have this problem either, I can't 100% rule out, without going through every single person's statements, that some people are not being delivered this. Certainly I'm not, but here is how you can prove to yourself, one way or the other, whether this is actually happening to you. And I have to say, my suspicion is it probably isn't.